This is an ad for the new EufyMake E1 printer. And I just want to be very transparent that they did send me this and are sponsoring this video. But I just want to let you know that I'm actually the one that reached out to them. I saw a few creators have a lot of fun with this printer and I knew I had to give it a try. I don't want this video to be about why you should buy it, but I just want to share some use cases that I think are so exciting and unique to this. With that said, let's unbox it and I'll explain more what this printer does as we go. We just got everything set up and assembled. If I didn't have to film, I think this would have taken like 15 minutes to set up. So let's just use one of those test prints just to make sure everything's working. I actually had to calibrate it first, which took about an hour. Now we're ready to do our test print. They gave us a sample magnet as a test, so let's use that. So let's do relief magnet, let's do animal. Oh, we can choose looks like we can choose a photo. Let's select this photo of our dogs. Can I do 70-50? Cool. Yeah, we're gonna try doing the 3D comic and the object 3D area. It looks like if you want to use AI to generate stuff, it costs some tokens. What is that? That looks horrifying. Look at Maddie. Given it is a photo with bad lighting, dude, that is so funny. Okay, let's try this again. Let's try this one. This is when we first got our dog Mason. Oh. I like it. What is smoothness? Oh, I see. Okay, so it looks like max height is the maximum layer height that the whole design can come out, which is really cool. Let's try the max. Let's try 5 millimeters. Oh, smoothness looks like it's the difference between the different layers. Dude, that's so cool. Dude, look at that sign. Okay, let's put the magnet in and give it a try. Now that we've added the magnet in the printer, I think all we need to do is take a snapshot of where it is. That looks pretty sick. It's not exactly, can I move it? How do I rotate? Oh, is that right? I feel like this might be easier on a computer. Man, it's annoying because right when I move my finger off of it, it moves a little. Okay, I'm just gonna make it bigger than the magnet. I think it looks good. Also curious to see what happens because the picture is bigger than the print area. So does that just bleed onto the print bed? Let's see what happens. Looks like it just finished. Oh, wow. No way. What? Okay, it looks like it just bleeds over onto the bed. This is insane. Hold on, to check that out. Look how much it's raised. It looks like it's doing something weird with the shadow, but overall, this is so crazy. So let's talk about what this machine is and why I'm so excited. This machine is the most funded campaign on Kickstarter. It's backed by almost 18,000 people who have pledged close to $47 million. That's insane. But people are so excited because it's the first desktop UV printer that brings 3D texturing to your home workshop. Because instead of filament, it sprays UV curable ink directly onto objects, whether it be metal, wood, glass, even ceramic, and then instantly cures it. The E1 also includes a built-in self-cleaning system that automatically flushes and primes the print heads, so you don't have to worry about any clogging between jobs, which sounds really cool in theory, but it's hard to believe that's true. So for today's projects, I'm just gonna be testing stuff out. So to start off, I'm gonna use the stuff that they sent me, and then I wanna just try stuff that I have around the house, and then I want to move on to 3D prints. So let's see what I can do. After doing the magnet, I want to try making a coaster. So I created one of a pizza. I don't know how well the camera is going to capture it, but adding relief texture on this, it looks like a mini pizza. The pepperonis are even curved and concaved. I can scratch it really hard. It doesn't do anything, it's not coming off. Even on the edges, there's nothing to pick at. Having a consumer UV printer that can do this is honestly crazy. Okay, let's print something bigger. And all you need to do is unlock it, swap out the plates, and then lock it again. I actually saw this tip from some other users. You can apply blue tape along the edges to prevent it from overflowing onto the build plate. This makes it so much easier to clean later. So in the supplies, I sent over metal sheets, but the thing I don't like about them is they're coated in white, which I feel like it kind of takes away from this whole experiment part of it. So I actually have some leftover pieces of aluminum. And I think this is really cool because parts of the aluminum can actually shine through the artwork, which feels less like it was just printed on some kind of canvas. For this example, I actually took a Star Wars poster and I removed parts of the background. And here it is. For this example, I actually want to also see what it looks like without the white base coat. So the one on the left has it and the one on the right does not. And I want to test this because in some cases, I think it'll be cool to not have a base coat. And this is because the material underneath will be able to shine through. This might not be the perfect example, but it's pretty cool to see. That is so cool. I printed another movie poster onto a wood wall art. I'm just completely geeking out right now. All right, here we go. I mean, that is so clean. I'm honestly just stunned. Next up, I bought a mirror from IKEA, and I want to test this because with some devices, mirrors can actually throw off the cameras or sensors, but this one actually had no problem at all. This is a mirror I actually just purchased from the artist Trout, and it's a fun design inspired by MS Paint. And once again, you can't really scratch it off. You can definitely hear the different layer, but it's not coming off. There's actually another surface I want to print on, and that's glass. I went to IKEA and I found this for I think $8, and I just took out 2 of the glass panels. So I designed this. This is actually a gift from my mom. This is right before Christmas, and it's of her 2 dogs. But I was very specific with the way I want the stained glass to be textured. In EufyMake, you can actually upload your own custom texture. In this case, where the black outlines are, I made those black and everything else white. And this tells EufyMake that I want the areas that are black to be raised. And I think it came out perfect. But for this one, this will be the front panel. So I did color only, that way you can see through it. This is my favorite one yet. I absolutely love how the custom texture turned out. It really gives that stained glass effect. Before we move on to 3D prints, there's actually one more thing I want to try printing on, and that's just an air tag. My wife and I love air tags, and we have a bunch of them, but sometimes we get a little confused for which one's which. So let's add a cool label on this one. I love this. And this is actually a picture of my suitcase. I love label makers, and I feel like this just takes it to the next level. Now we can finally move on to 3D prints. And to start off, I want to print on something completely flat and easy, just as a base test. So I 3D printed these hexagon shapes that represent Settlers of Catan board pieces. Whether you have kids or if you're like me and you're just a kid at heart, being able to customize game pieces like this is so much fun. And this was just a very simple use case. I know a lot of people paint 3D prints, but this opens up the possibility of not having to do that. One thing I do notice is you can see the layer lines, but I wonder if we increase the number of layers if it will eventually disappear. We'll give that a try later. But this is so cool. If you see my other videos, I've done several projects with this macro keyboard. I like it because it's geometric and small enough to run simple experiments on. And one of the people that inspired me to get this machine was actually Cam. I saw a video of him creating this Minecraft cube using pictures that he took of grass in various terrains, and I kind of want to do something similar for this. I love golfing, so let's make a custom golf keyboard with custom keycaps. I love the way this turned out. To make this golf themed, I made the keyboard grass, I made the knob a golf ball. For the keycaps, I did water and sand to represent some elements that are on the golf course. I don't love the keycaps, but it was a fun experiment. I added texture to the keyboard and to the keycaps, and it's just an insane customization to be able to do. I am noticing something weird with the golf ball. The shading is supposed to be black, but it's got hints of green on it. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but we'll keep an eye out for it. And all these elements here are 3D printed. And because it's textured, it added multiple layers, so you can't see any of the layer lines on the 3D prints. And this stuff does not come off easily. Like, I can scratch it with a key. And I don't see a single scratch on it, which is insane. Let's move on to the next project. Seeing how I printed on the keycaps really well, even though they were sloped and different heights, it got me thinking, and what's the variable of height difference that it will still be able to perform pretty well. I created a simple 3D model that has 1mm steps, and I want to see over how many steps it will still be able to print in high quality. I also don't know what to print on it, so let's first do a simple test and just print text that goes all the way across and see until what step it's legible. I think that makes sense. Is that a good test? I don't know. Let's try it out. This is very interesting. If you were to take a guess, how many steps do you think it would take until it became illegible? Because I did not expect this. At the very most bottom layer, there is some spraying, but I kind of thought there would be spraying earlier. What's also crazy is it's able to print all the way up to the edge. I'm also thinking for this test, instead of doing Instead of doing squares, I should have just done strips of it going down because the most bottom layer is just this tiny square in the middle. But this is interesting. I don't get it. This wasn't supposed to work. So I went ahead and I did another test. Since we're printing on white PLA, I wanted to see if it makes a difference at all if we use a white undercoat base. The far left one has no white underbase, the second one has 1 layer, and the third one has 2 layers. And I honestly can't tell much of a difference, but it still blows my mind that as we go down these steps, there's not much of a decrease in quality. I should have made it go past 7mm from the top to the bottom, but I didn't expect this. Something fun I've been wanting to do is models, whether it be miniatures or in this case a flat pack of a car. This is a model of a Volkswagen Golf GTI. I was able to find some photos online of a Golf GTI from different angles, but it's obviously not going to match perfectly to this model. But imagine that you took photos with this model in mind. It would be such a cool combination to see realistic images on 3D models. I actually really want to do a Gundam version of this, but I just didn't have the time. So for this project, I did a very quick Photoshop version, so it's not going to look perfect. But before we print, I'm just going to pop off the wheels because it is much taller than everything else. Okay, the car just finished. Oh man, this is so cool. All right, here we go. The color does seem a little off. I thought since it's a car, a gloss would be kind of cool. But who knows, maybe that has an effect on the color. But the front and back of the car looks so cool. Okay, let's put it together. Unfortunately, I can't put it together. I think what happened was some of the resin prints overflowed onto some of the tabs that are connecting pieces, but you can see the vision. Once again, I think this is such a fun idea because you don't have to paint the models. And on top of that, you can put hyper-realistic images onto 3D prints. But I am still seeing some color issues just like we did with the knob of the keyboard. This should be a red car, but for some weird reason it's coming out as orange. I did have the machine completely off for about a week while I was traveling, so maybe something went wrong there. I'll try running a few deep cleans as well as some test prints, but still having a lot of fun with this. This is really cool because we can match the color of the text with the item. I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying, Josh, but we can do this with our AMS system. And you're right. But can your AMS system do this? Apparently this can't either, but it would have been so cool if it could. But I still wanted to show you this filled print. The depth of this is actually about 9mm, and as you can see, there's some evident spraying going on. You can actually add multiple Gridfinity bins onto the EufyMake and then add text all at once. One more thing I want to do with Gridfinity bins is add design onto the top layer. Something like this. And if you imagine a whole drawer filled with wood grain Gridfinity bins, I think it will look pretty cool. I know some of you are going to say this is so extra and not needed, but you act like making a grid, tracing out all your tools and organizing them and 3D printing it isn't extra. This takes like an extra 10 minutes to do, and it's a lot of fun. But one thing this print does do is solidify that there's something wrong with the printer. And I've seriously tried everything. I manually cleaned the print head, I changed out all the cartridges, done all the test prints, and it's still got this very faded green look. And it's driving me absolutely crazy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reach out to the team and see if they have a solution. Just kills me a little because I know the potential that this machine has, and this isn't an accurate representation of what it could do. But it is what it is, and I want to give you my honest feedback. So I'm just going to keep pushing through. I have a few more fun projects that I really want to do, and I'm still having fun. This next idea involves a 3D printed build plate. I love textured build plates because it can hide imperfections while giving it a fun design. So for this project, I've 3D printed onto the build plate. I actually saw CNC Kitchen do this, and I knew I had to try it. One thing I really want to try was a wooden grain texture, and I honestly don't know why more companies don't make a wooden grain build plate. I can't be the only one that thinks it's cool. The only company I've seen do this is actually Ember Prototypes, and he makes some really cool other build plates as well. But I thought it'd be fun to try this experiment. So the lowest height the EufyMake E1 can print for the raise is actually 0.3mm. Luckily on the Bamboo X1C, I have a 0.6 nozzle, so it should be okay. One thing CNC Kitchen did mention is that this is probably best just for PLA because of the temperature. Because if we use something like PETG, it risks melting the resin off. Okay, I'm super excited for this, but also very nervous. Okay, here we go. That is so cool. Wow, let's see how the other ones did. Nice. This one actually peeled off. Wow. This wood one is so cool. This Japanese inspired Kamiko one's also pretty cool. I imagine you can use this when you use like thin sheets and make a lantern. Unfortunately, the topographic map failed. It might be because of two reasons. One of them, I used a PNG image and it's a little pixelated. As well as when I look at the lines, I think it might be the thinnest of the three, which might have an effect. But as a quick way to make custom build plates, this is pretty fun. I'm definitely going to be exploring this more later. Let's see how hard it is to get it off a build plate. So it does look like if you use a little force, it comes off pretty easily, which is good to know. That means this build plate isn't ruined. This was just a quick test. When you use the relief texture in EufyMake, it uses a lot of ink and takes a long time. So as an experiment, I want to see if you can 3D print the texture and then use EufyMake to just print on it. And I'm actually really happy with these results. The only thing is, it doesn't line up perfectly. And you really notice it with the letters and where the Statue of Liberty's spikes are, because it's really hard to line up in the software. I wish there was a way to change the opacity in the software. That way I can clearly see what's behind the image. For this experiment, I also did a 0.3 color raised. That way it will hide all the imperfections of the 3D print. And I think this is a perfect example of leveraging both strengths from both machines. Pretty excited for this one. So in my previous video, I made TPU straps for a laptop bag. And one thing I really did not like was the way the TPU looked, because it had the sheen on it, there was a lot of layer lines, and it just looked really cheap. So for this experiment, I want to print on a leather texture onto the TPU strap. I also added a pattern texture to it, so you can feel all the cracks between the leather. And if you're wondering, it's still flexible. And this is still using the regular white ink that they provided. I know that they also provided a flexible white ink, which is more suitable when you print on things like canvases. And I think it will be also better on this. It's still got that hint of green when it should be completely black, but I'm still waiting to hear back from the team. This is giving me so many ideas. It's so cool to see this because it doesn't look like a 3D print. EufyMake also sent over a bunch of accessories, one of them being a rotary accessory. And this is used to print on things like tumblers and mugs. And there's so many videos of people doing that already. But instead, I want to try printing on a cylinder piece that's 3D printed. In this case, something like a lamp. I first 3D printed this, but unfortunately, it's too big, so I scaled it down. So let's put this together and then see if it works. So the print just finished. I was super worried because it's so thin, because it was printed in vase mode, but it turned out so perfect. So for this experiment, I did two different types of prints. These are just done with CMYK only. Because this is a lamp, you don't want too many different layers or else the light won't be able to shine through. But the issue here that we saw with other experiments is that when you have one layer, you really see the layer lines, and I was afraid of that with this project. And just to test that out, I also did one where I did the color raised 0.3 millimeters. And we saw in the previous experiments that this actually eliminates the layer lines. But in this case, it also eliminates the ability for light to shine through. But if you're printing a cylinder object that wasn't a lamp, this is a completely viable option. And once again, it's so cool to be able to see hyper-realistic images printed onto 3D prints. All right, this is the last one. I know a lot of people in the 3D printing community love Skadis boards, and I love them too, except for how they look. Which got me thinking, what if we can transform the board to be more of an art piece? Or just blend in more with the aesthetics of our room? So I made this. Now that I'm looking at it, I know it's sideways. But you know what? If Bob Ross was here, he would call it a happy accident. But it's projects like this that really excite me about the EufyMake E1 and how it can combine with 3D printing. There's almost a zero learning curve to using this machine, and it can really elevate your 3D prints or just personalize it. Okay, let's wrap up this video with some final thoughts. And I really don't have that many gripes with this machine. Sure, the software is a little buggy, and the user experience can be improved, but for a beta launch, this is probably one of the best I've seen yet. But I did have some big issues that I think are worth pointing out. And the most evident issue is the color issue. And the team got back to me after the holidays, and they told me it was an issue with their Magenta ink. And if that's just the issue, that's an easy fix. The second issue for me that I haven't heard other people talk about is actually the smell. I initially had this in my garage, which is pretty spacious, but there was still a strong odor. And after being in that space for a long time, I started getting a headache, which is weird because on my VOC monitor, I didn't detect any high levels. So it could just be a me thing, which leads me to my next issue, which is that it was temperature sensitive. It's currently winter right now, and it was giving me errors that it won't operate unless it's between 15 degrees Celsius and 35 degrees Celsius. Now I live on the West Coast in the United States, and it doesn't get extremely cold, but it does dip below 15 degrees Celsius. And I thought this would be important because I figured other people would want to put in the garage that could be colder than where I am. For a while, I actually put a space heater right next to the printer, and that worked for a while until it started getting colder. I eventually moved it inside into an enclosure I found off Amazon, where I used a ventilation hose for a really temporary makeshift setup. But we're not gonna look at that right now. So after all these pain points, what's my final verdict on this machine? I absolutely loved it. Using this machine really reminded me of the first time I used a 3D printer. It just blew my mind. Sure, it gives off a smell and is temperature sensitive, but at the end of the day, this is a resin printer. Just like how my other 3D printers have enclosures, I definitely plan on building a more permanent enclosure for this machine. The way they made this machine is so intuitive and user-friendly. And EufyMake is constantly making updates and listening to people's feedback. For example, one of the things that really annoyed me about this machine when I first started using it is after you send your file, you had to manually walk to the machine and print start. I get it that you want to make sure that the area is safe to print, but this isn't a CNC machine. It's not going to blow up if I don't pay attention to it. Thankfully, a few weeks ago, they did an update where I can just start it from my computer. And the hardware for this machine is absolutely amazing. Besides the magenta color issue, I've honestly not had an issue with this. It just does everything automatically, including the cleaning. I could even see a future where you can upload an STL file and it could create a 3D print. It's just that good. And lastly, and most importantly, it's just fun. This was supposed to be an 8-minute video, but I just kept thinking of new experiments to try. And for the most part, this machine was able to handle everything I threw at it. I haven't even explored the DTF accessory that they sent me, that you can create your own stickers, vinyls, and even heat press designs. And I'm honestly just excited to use this in my workflow now. Whether it be making GIFs or quick prototyping, I think it's just a fun machine that complements things like 3D printing and CNC. And just like that, that's it for this video. Please let me know in the comments what you thought, if you have any questions, or if there's something that you'd like to see. I want to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all my Patreon members, and thank you to EufyMake for letting me test this out. And until the next one, keep making stuff.